Hi everyone, my name is Diana Luas Lacre, and I'm going to talk about Chapter 5, Going to Spain and Last Homecoming. So before I officially start with my video lecture, I'm going to recommend you first to listen to video lectures in Bitter to Sweet Life in the Pitan and the topic in Manila since they are connected to my topic, and for you also to avoid being confused with the names, with the relationships of the characters to Rizal, and to dates. And now let's start. First, I'm going to talk about going to Spain. So, in September 7, Rizal was urged by some Filipinos, like his co-passenger Don Pedro Rojas and Singaporean resident Don Manuel Camus, to stay in the British-controlled territory. Trusting Blanco's words, Rizal refused to stay in Singapore. Without his knowledge, however, Blanco and the Minister of War in the colonies had been exchanging telegrams, planning his arrest upon reaching Barcelona. So as Isla de Panay, name of the ship, made a stopover at Port Said, Egypt on September 27, the passengers had known that the uprising in the Philippines got worse as thousands of Spanish soldiers were dispatched to Manila. Rizal at this time had this hunch that Filipinos were already killed, um, arrested, and executed. He also had this impression that his co-passengers already associated him with with the Filipino Revolution because they're starting to be aloof with him. They don't go near him and they don't want to talk with him because his co-passengers don't want to associate with themselves to Rizal because they are afraid that the um, Spaniards will arrest them. So a day after, Rizal wrote a letter to Blumentritt informing him that he received some information that Blanco had an order to arrest him. Before reaching Malta on September 30, he was officially ordered to stay in his cabin until further orders from Blanco come. So before Rizal had the help from Blumentritt, Blanco already had this one step ahead of him by having the orders for Rizal to go out of his cabin or to go out of the ship. Next, on October 3 of year 1896, Rizal became a prisoner on board of Isla de Panay. He was then heavily guarded by the military commander of Barcelona named General Eulogio Despujol, the same former governor-general who deported Rizal to the Pitan in year 1892. So in the early morning of October 6, he was transported to Montjuich, or if I pronounce that correctly, prison fortress. Then in the afternoon, he was brought to General Despujol, who told him that there was an order to ship him back to Manila in the evening. So during those times, Rizal was he was transported to different places. And then in the night of October 6 at 8 p.m., he was taken aboard to a ship named Colon. So at first he was in a ship named Isla de Panay and now already again on board to a ship named Colon to bring him back to Manila. The ship was full of Spanish soldiers and their families who were in orders not to go near or talk to him. Rizal was allowed to take walks on deck during the journey. He was locked up and handcuffed before reaching any port. So Spanish soldiers were really strict to Rizal because they don't want him first to escape and they don't want for the passengers to help Rizal escape or to have communicate the passengers with Rizal because that might allow Rizal to escape or have ask for help to his companions or to his friends or to his acquaintances. So that's all for the topic going to Spain. And the next is last homecoming. So on November 3 of year 1896, Rizal arrived in Manila as a prisoner who was detained in Fort Santiago, the same place where he was imprisoned 4 years ago. To gather pieces of evidences against him, some of his friends, acquaintances, members of La Liga, and even his brother Pasiano were tortured and forcibly questioned. So this was the very common actions of way back before, in order to really have um, details about a prisoner, Spanish soldiers, or even before um, other nationalities um, who invaded the Philippines or a country. It's very common for them to torture and forcibly question some of the Filipinos who have this relationship with the prisoner. In the preliminary investigation, Rizal underwent series of interrogations administered by one of the judges, Colonel Francisco Olive, the same military leader who led the troops that forced Rizal family to vacate in their Calamba home in year 1890. Those who were coerced to testify against Rizal were not allowed to be cross-examined by the accused. Rizal was said to have admitted knowing most of those questioned, though he would deny by the end that he knew either Andres Bonifacio or Apolinario Mabini. 15 pieces of documentary evidences were presented. Examples of those documentary evidences were Rizal's letters, letters for his compatriots like Marcelo del Pilar and Antonio Luna, a poem Kundiman, a Masonic document, transcripts of speech of Katipuneros, Emilio Cinto and Jose Toriano Santiago, and his poem entitled Atalisay. The testimonial evidence involved the oral testimonies of 13 Filipinos, notably including that of the Liga officers like Ambrosio Salvador and the Dato Arellano and the Katipunero Vio Valenzuela. And on November 26, Olive submitted the reports to Blanco. Captain Rafael Dominguez was then the assigned special judge advocate in Rizal's case. Dominguez then made a summary of the case and delivered it to Blanco, who subsequently sent the papers to Judge Advocate General Don Nicolas de la Peña. After examining the case, de la Peña recommended that a Rizal instantly brought to trial, be kept in jail, an order of attachment to be issued against his property, and lastly would be I'm a Spanish army officer, not a civilian lawyer, to be permitted to defend him in court. On December 8, Rizal chose Lieutenant Luis Taviel de Andrade to be his lawyer from a list of 100 Spanish army officers. Lieutenant Luis Taviel de Andrade turned out to be the younger brother of his bodyguard friend in Calamba in 1887, Jose Taviel de Andrade. 3 days after, December 11, formal charges were read to Rizal's prison cells with his attorney. Attorney at the time was just in his side. He was accused of being the main organizer and the living soul of the revolution, having proliferated ideas of rebellion and of founding illegal organizations. So he was accused of being, father of the organization. He pleaded not guilty to the crime of rebellion, explained that La Liga, the name of the group, the constitution of which he wrote, was just a civic organization. 13th of December, Camilo de Polavieja replaced Blanco as Governor General. Rizal's criminal case was then sent to Malacanang. Concerned about the welfare of his people, Rizal on December 15 wrote a manifesto which appeals revolutionaries to discontinue that uprising and pursue to attain liberty instead by means of education and of labor. But de la Peña, sorry for that, but de la Peña interpreted the manifesto as all of the more advocating the spirit of rebellion as it ultimately willed the Filipino liberty. Thus, Polavieja disallowed to issue Rizal's manifesto. I have here few photos of some of the characters in my topics. I have here Governor Ramon Blanco, and I have also here the ship named Isla de Panay, which aboard at Port Said in 1898. I hope this would help you to have a picture in your mind of, what's the what could have been the scenario when they encounter Rizal. It's like that. I've also here Governor Despayol. So I'm I tried to look for the clear um version of this, but I think this was the best. And I also had here Lieutenant Luisa Vial de Andrade, the attorney of Rizal, the one he chose among the 100 men. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. Thank you.